Have you ever felt the silent scream? The one that doesn't make a sound but echoes in the hollowed-out chambers of your soul. It's the scream that happens in the dead space between a text you should have sent and the one you never received. It's the tremor in your hand as you hover over the call button, only to pull back, to retreat, to disappear into the familiar, suffocating safety of your own silence. For weeks, for months, for years, you've been building a fortress around your heart. Brick by brick, with every excuse, every deflection, every "I'm fine," you've constructed a prison of your own design. You tell yourself you're self-reliant, you call it independence. But deep down in the quiet, honest moments in the middle of the night, you know the truth. You're not safe in there. You're starving. You are dying of emotional thirst while pretending you don't need water. And I'm here today to talk about the moment the walls you built to protect you become the walls that begin to crew. I'm here to talk about the avoidance breaking point, that divine, painful, glorious moment when the pain of staying the same finally becomes greater than the terrifying fear of change. That moment when the soul, tired of its own hibernation, decides to break the surface and gasp for air, no matter how cold it is. Let's get real for a moment. Let's get brutally, uncomfortably honest. Avoidance isn't a single catastrophic failure. It's not a giant chasm you fall into. No, it's far more insidious than that. It's a slow, quiet, daily descent. It's the death by 1,000 paper cuts. Every time you swallow your truth, that's a paper cut. Every time you see a notification and feel a knot in your stomach, so you put the phone down and walk away, that's a paper cut. Every birthday you spend alone telling yourself you prefer it that way, that's a paper cut. Every dream you dismiss as impractical, every spark of connection you extinguish because it feels too risky, every may be next time that you know deep down means never. These are not insignificant events. They are tiny, deliberate acts of self-abandonment. And you have a bucket inside you. You call it "I'm fine." You call it handling it. You call it "my space." But that bucket is where you drop every single one of these paper cuts. For days, for months, for years, you just keep dropping them in. "I'm fine." Drop. "It's not a big deal." Drop. "They're better off without me anyway." Drop. And you become a master of compartmentalization, of rationalization. You become an archaeologist of your own misery, carefully cataloging each slight, each moment of perceived rejection, each fear, and you place it gently into the bucket, telling yourself you'll deal with it later. But later never comes. What happens instead? The bucket gets heavier and heavier. You start to feel the strain in your shoulders. You hear the slosh of that accumulated, stagnant, emotional weight with every step you take. Your walk becomes a shuffle. Your smile becomes a wince. Your "I'm fine" starts to sound like a question, even to your own ears. You are carrying this bucket everywhere you go, to work, to the grocery store, and to your empty bed at night. And then it happens. It's never the big thing. It's the last paper cut, the one that, by itself, is meaningless. The milk is sour. The internet is down. You stub your toe, and you lose it. You scream. You cry. You collapse on the floor in a heap of overwhelming, disproportionate despair. And in that moment, you are not crying over the spilled milk. You are crying over every single paper cut that came before it. You are crying because the bucket has finally catastrophically overflowed. The fine has ruptured, and you are now ankle deep in the undeniable evidence of your own accumulated pain. This is the first breaking point. It's not dramatic in its cause, but it is earth-shattering in its effect. It's the moment your own coping mechanism, your own strategy of handling it, betrays you and shows you the sheer, staggering volume of what you have been carrying. It's the universe's way of saying, you can lie to everyone else, but you can no longer lie to yourself. Look at this mess. This is your life. This is the cost of your avoidance. And in that puddle of your own making, you have a choice to start cleaning it up or to retreat further. The breaking point is the moment you realize retreat is no longer an option because there's nowhere left to go. The pain of the mess is now greater than the fear of the mop. The human mind is an incredible machine for prediction. It's always projecting forward, creating a story of what's to come. For most of your life as an avoidant, that story has been a vague, gray, manageable narrative of solitude. I'll be okay. I can handle myself. I don't need much. But then there comes a moment, often triggered by a glimpse into someone else's life, a movie, a conversation overheard, or just a sudden, stark moment of introspection when the projector in your mind switches reels. The gray, blurry future suddenly snaps into terrifying high-definition focus. You don't just see yourself alone next year. You feel it. You feel the cold sheets on your 70th birthday. You hear the deafening silence in your apartment that has become not a sanctuary, but a tomb. You see your own hand, wrinkled and alone, with no other hand to hold it. This is not just a thought. It's a full sensory emotional premonition. It's the ghost of Christmas future visiting you and showing you the cold, forgotten grave of a life lived in fear. This vision is so visceral, so real, that it steals the air from your lungs. It's a panic attack of the soul, because in that moment, you realize with chilling certainty that your current path of avoidance is not a path at all. It's a conveyor belt, and it's leading directly inexorably to that ghost future. You see that every time you cancel a plan, you are laying another brick on the road to that loneliness. Every time you push someone away, you are furnishing that empty room. Every time you choose fear over connection, you are writing the epitaph for your own heart. Here lies a person who chose safety over a life and got neither. This breaking point is the collision between your comfortable present and your horrifying future. The distance between them collapses, and you are forced to live in that future for a split second, and it is unbearable. The pain of that potential reality, of that ghost version of you, is so acute that it becomes a greater motivator than any immediate fear of rejection or vulnerability. The fear of reaching out is suddenly dwarfed by the terror of arriving at that destination, the destination your avoidance is building for you, one day at a time. This vision becomes an internal alarm bell that cannot be unrung. It's no longer about feeling lonely tonight, it's about condemning yourself to a lifetime of loneliness. And in that moment, you are presented with the most powerful choice of your life. Stay on the conveyor belt and accept the ghost future as your fate, or grab the emergency brake, tear off the track, and start blazing a new trail through the wilderness, no matter how frightening it seems. The breaking point is the moment you choose the wilderness over the graveyard. There is a version of you that exists in your mind's eye. A version that is courageous, loving, open, and connected. Maybe it's who you were as a child. Maybe it's who you dreamed of becoming. This version is your moral and emotional compass. And for years, you have been negotiating with this version of yourself. You've been making excuses. I'll be more open when I feel safer. I'll reach out after I get my life together. I'll be vulnerable once I'm unbreakable. But with every act of avoidance, you are not just avoiding another person, you are avoiding yourself. You are betraying that core version of who you are. At first, it's a whisper, a faint feeling of unease, a sense that you are living a lie. But you can quiet it. You can numb it with work, with distraction, with the story that you're protecting yourself. But the whisper grows. It becomes a voice. And then one day, you catch your own reflection in a window. Not a mirror where you pose, but an unexpected glimpse, and you don't recognize the person staring back. The eyes are hollow, the posture is defensive, the energy is closed off, and in that moment the voice becomes a roar. It screams, "Who is this? This is not who I am. This is not who I wanted to be." This is the breaking point of self-betrayal. It is the moment, the gap between who you know yourself to be at your core and who you are behaving as becomes a chasm so wide you can no longer ignore it. The weight of this hypocrisy becomes unbearable. You feel like a fraud in your own life. You have become the very thing you feared, someone who is controlled by fear, someone who is not living with integrity, someone who has abandoned their own heart. The pain of this realization is far more acute than any external rejection could ever be. A rejection from someone else can be rationalized. They didn't understand me, it wasn't the right fit. But how do you rationalize a rejection of your own soul? How do you live with the person who has been systematically dismantling your own potential for connection? This breaking point is a crisis of identity. It's the moment you can no longer stand the taste of your own excuses. The story you've been telling yourself shatters, and you are left with the raw, ugly truth. You have been your own jailer. And this truth is so repulsive, so fundamentally unacceptable, that it creates a power within you that you didn't know you had. It's the power of self-reclamation. The fear of reaching out to others is suddenly replaced by a more primal, more powerful drive, the need to reach back to yourself, to look in that reflection and see a glimmer of the person you know you are, to take one action, however small, that is in alignment with your true self, to send the text not because you're sure of the outcome, but because the person you are at your core is the kind of person who would send the text. The breaking point is when your self-respect finally, violently overtakes your self-protection. Human beings can endure incredible hardship as long as they believe it's the only reality. You can sit in a dark room for years if you believe that darkness is all that exists. But what happens when someone, even for a moment, cracks open the door and lets in a sliver of light? What happens when you get a glimpse of a different world? For the avoidant, this is often a catalytic encounter with another person, not necessarily a romantic partner, but anyone who operates by a different set of rules. It's the new colleague who is unapologetically themselves, flaws and all, and is loved for it. It's the friend of a friend who shares a vulnerable story over dinner, creating a moment of such profound shared humanity that the air in the room changes. It's the stranger who offers you a genuine, unearned kindness that has no hook, no expectation. In that moment, you are not just observing this person, you are witnessing an entire paradigm of existence that you had written off as a fairy tale. You see that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a superpower that builds bridges. You see that authenticity is not a liability, but a magnet. You see that connection is not a dangerous negotiation, but a potential source of fuel. And this glimpse does something dangerous and beautiful. It creates cognitive dissonance. It shatters your core belief that the world is dangerous and I must protect myself. Because here is living, breathing proof that there is another way. This person is not being destroyed by their openness, they are being energized by it. They are not being rejected, they are being embraced. And in that moment, your own fortress, which you were so proud of, starts to feel not like a castle, but like a prison. The glimpse of light makes you aware of the darkness you have been sitting in. This is a breaking point of profound hope and profound frustration. The hope comes from seeing that the world you secretly long for might actually be real. The frustration comes from realizing that the only thing standing between you and that world is you, your fears, your walls, your patterns. This encounter becomes a seed of discontent that grows rapidly. You can't unsee the light. You start to compare the warm, messy, vibrant world you glimpsed with the cold, orderly, sterile world you have constructed. And the sterile world begins to lose its appeal. It feels dead. The breaking point comes when the desire to step into that sliver of light becomes stronger than the habit of retreating into the familiar darkness. You realize that you would rather be momentarily blinded by the light than have your eyes fully adjusted to the dark. You would rather risk the pain of potential rejection for a chance at that kind of connection than guarantee the slow, soul-crushing certainty of your isolation. That one glimpse becomes a reference point, a North Star, and you decide, no matter how clumsily, to start walking toward it. You can lie to your mind. You can rationalize, compartmentalize, and tell yourself stories about why your avoidance is the smart choice. But you cannot lie to your body. Your body is the ultimate truth teller. It keeps the score of every suppressed emotion, every stifled cry, every moment of unexpressed need. For years, your body has been sending you invoices in the form of low-grade symptoms, tension in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach, restless sleep, a general feeling of being on edge, and you've been ignoring them. You pop a painkiller, you drink another coffee, you push through the fatigue, you treat your body like a disobedient machine that needs to be silenced so you can continue your psychology. Cal project of self-protection. But the body has a final, non-negotiable invoice. It's called breakdown. It's the panic attack that hits you in the cereal aisle of the grocery store for no apparent reason. It's the migraines that leave you incapacitated for days. It's the autoimmune disorder that flares up where your own body begins to attack itself because it has so much pent-up, misdirected energy with nowhere else to go. It's the insomnia where you lie awake at 3 a.m., your heart pounding as if you're being chased by a tiger, but the only tiger is the one you've locked inside your own chest. This is the breaking point where your biology forces a psychological reckoning. You can no longer think your way out of it. You are flat on your back, physically defeated. And in that state of forced stillness, a terrifying and liberating clarity emerges. You realize that you have been at war with yourself. Your mind, in its attempt to protect you from emotional pain, has been systematically inflicting physical pain on your body. The very mechanism you used for safety has become the source of your danger. The breaking point is this somatic ultimatum: change your life, or your body will continue to deteriorate. A therapist or a coach can be ignored. A self-help book can be placed back on the shelf. But you cannot ignore a body that has declared mutiny. This physical crisis becomes the most powerful mandate for change you will ever receive. It is not a suggestion, it is a demand from your deepest, most primal self to survive. The fear of reaching out to another person suddenly seems trivial compared to the fear of a heart attack at 45. The awkwardness of a difficult conversation seems insignificant next to the debilitation of chronic pain. Your body, in its infinite wisdom, has called your bluff. It has raised the stakes of the game so high that you can no longer afford to play. You are forced to listen. And the first step towards healing your body is almost always to start healing your emotional life, to speak the words you've been holding in, to ask for the help you need, to release the emotional toxins that have been poisoning your system. The breaking point is when you pick up the phone to call a therapist, a doctor, a friend, not because you want to, but because your body has given you no other choice. It is the ultimate intervention. The avoidance world is built on a fragile scaffolding of control. You control your environment, your schedule, your interactions. You believe that if you can just manage the variables, you can avoid pain. You create a small, predictable life and you call it safety. But the universe has a funny way of interrupting our best-laid plans. It sends a storm that our flimsy scaffolding cannot withstand. This is the scaffolding collapse's breaking point. It's the single, external, uncontrollable event that shatters your illusion of control. It's getting laid off from the job that was your entire identity. It's a sudden health diagnosis for a parent. It's a global pandemic that locks you in your apartment, stripping away all your distractions. It's the death of the one person you did feel safe with. In an instant, the ground vanishes from beneath your feet. The routines you relied on are gone. The identity you hid behind is stripped away. The future you thought was guaranteed is vaporized. And in that terrifying freefall, a profound realization hits you: you were never in control. Not really. All that avoidance, all that meticulous management was a dance you were doing in a cage, pretending you were leading. The storm comes and the cage is blown open. This breaking point is brutal, but it is also liberating. The very thing you feared most, the loss of control, has happened. And you are still here, still breathing. The pain is immense, but it is a real pain, not the imagined, theoretical pain you've been avoiding for years. This crisis forces you out of your head and into the real world. Your sophisticated defense mechanisms are useless here. You can't avoid a tornado, you can only survive it. And survival, you quickly learn, is not a solitary act. It requires help. It requires leaning on others. It requires saying the three words the avoidant finds most difficult: I need help. When the scaffolding collapses, you have no choice. You have to reach out. You have to call a friend for a place to stay. You have to ask a family member for financial support. You have to let a colleague see you cry. And in doing so, you make the most profound discovery: people show up. The rejection you feared so much does not materialize. Instead, you find compassion. You find a hand reaching back. You find that the connection you avoided was the very thing that could have made you resilient all along. The breaking point is the moment you trade the illusion of control for the reality of community. You realize that true strength isn't about standing alone, unshaken. It's about knowing how to fall and knowing that there are hands ready to catch you. The collapsed scaffolding is no longer a prison, it's just rubble. And from that rubble, you have the opportunity to build something new, something real, something built not on the fear of falling, but on the proven experience of being caught. Silence is the avoidant's natural habitat. You have curated it, defended it, and called it peace. But there is a fundamental difference between chosen solitude and enforced isolation. Chosen solitude is nourishing. It's a quiet room where you can hear your own thoughts. Enforced isolation, the kind that comes from a pattern of pushing people away, is a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. At first, the silence is a relief. No demands, no expectations, no potential for conflict. But slowly, insidiously, the silence changes quality. It stops being empty and starts becoming heavy. It's no longer an absence of sound. It becomes a presence in itself. It's the sound of your own loneliness. This is the echo in the empty room breaking point. It's the moment you achieve the very isolation you thought you wanted, and you discover it's a hollow victory. You come home to your perfectly clean, perfectly quiet apartment, and the silence doesn't greet you. It accuses you. You sit down to dinner alone, and the clink of your fork against the plate is the loudest sound in the world. You have a thought, a joke, a moment of insight, and there is no one to share it with. The thought just bounces off the walls and comes back to you, distorted and small. This echo becomes deafening. It's a constant, low-frequency hum of absence. The silence is no longer peaceful, it's starving. It screams of a life not lived, of conversations not had, of love not given or received. The breaking point arrives on an utterly ordinary Tuesday night. You are doing nothing wrong, you are safe, you are in control. And yet you are overwhelmed by a sense of existential dread. The fear of connection, which once seemed so large and menacing, suddenly seems small and petty compared to the vast, yawning emptiness of your own life. The what-ifs of reaching out, what if I'm rejected, what if it's awkward, are replaced by the terrifying certainty of the what is. What is this echoing silence, and it is slowly driving me insane. The pain of potential rejection becomes preferable to the guaranteed pain of this absolute aloneness. In this moment, the human need for connection, which you have been systematically starving, finally roars to life. It is a biological and spiritual imperative that can no longer be ignored. You would rather risk the messy, unpredictable noise of another human being than spend one more minute in the sterile, echoing silence of your own company. The breaking point is when the silence becomes so loud that you have to make a noise to drown it out. You pick up the phone, you type the email, you say yes to the invitation you would normally decline, not because you are suddenly brave, but because the alternative has become a form of psychological torture. You are choosing the possibility of noise over the certainty of the echo. Avoidance is often framed as a self-protective act, a victimless crime where the only person you're hurting is yourself. But that is a lie, a comfortable, self-serving lie. The truth is, your silence has a radius. It sends out shockwaves that impact everyone who cares about you. For a long time, you can ignore this. You can tell yourself that others are too needy or that they just don't get your need for space. You build a narrative where you are the misunderstood, independent soul, and they are the demanding intruders. But then comes a moment of shocking clarity. It's seeing the look of genuine, uncomplicated hurt in your mother's eyes when you cancel Thanksgiving for the third year in a row. It's hearing the frustration and confusion in your oldest friend's voice when they say, "I feel like I don't even know you anymore." It's watching your partner SL, Ali, shut down, their light dimming, because their attempts to connect have been met with a wall for so long that they've simply given up. This is the debt of love breaking point. It's the moment you are forced to see your avoidance not as a personal strategy, but as an active form of emotional neglect towards others. You realize that you have been incurring a debt of love, of presence, of basic human engagement. And the people who love you are the ones who have been paying the interest on that debt with their own confusion, their pain, and their fading hope. This realization is a moral earthquake. It shatters the egocentric story you've been telling yourself. This is no longer just about you and your fears. This is about the collateral damage of your behavior. The breaking point is the moment the pain you are causing someone else becomes more unbearable than the pain you are trying to avoid for yourself. Your self-protection is revealed as a form of selfishness. The thought, "I can't handle being vulnerable," is replaced by the more powerful thought, "I cannot continue to hurt this person who has done nothing but try to love me." This is a profound shift from a fear-based mindset to a love-based, or at least a responsibility-based mindset. The energy to change no longer comes from a desire to feel better, but from a fundamental inability to tolerate causing more harm. You reach out not to get something, relief, connection, validation, but to give something, an apology, an explanation, a moment of presence. You are paying down the debt. You are acknowledging the shock waves. This breaking point is fueled by empathy, and empathy is a far more powerful engine for change than fear. It pulls you out of your own head and forces you to confront the real-world impact of your choices. It forces you to be courageous, not for yourself, but for the sake of someone you care about. And in doing so, you often find the healing you were never able to find for yourself alone. Living as an avoidant is a full-time performance. You are the writer, director, and star of a one-person show called "I'm Fine, I'm Independent, I Don't Need Anyone." You carefully craft your image on social media, the interesting solo trips, the productive hobbies, the serene quotes about self-love. In conversations, you deftly steer the topic away from your inner world and onto safe, superficial ground. You become a master of deflection, of the charming smile that hides a chasm of loneliness. This performance is incredibly energetically expensive. It requires constant vigilance, constant editing, constant suppression of your true feelings. For years, you can run on the adrenaline of faking it. But the human spirit is not designed to live a double life forever. The gap between your internal reality, fear, loneliness, need, and your external performance, confidence, independence, aloofness, creates a psychological friction that generates immense fatigue. This is the exhaustion of the performance breaking point. It's not a dramatic event. It's a slow, grinding depletion. It's the moment you simply run out of the energy required to maintain the facade. You can't muster the charming deflection. You can't post another perfect picture. The mask which you have glued to your face for so long feels like it's suffocating you. The thought of going to a social event and performing okayness feels as daunting as climbing a mountain. The breaking point is the collapse of the act. It might happen in public. You might break down in tears when someone asks you a simple, genuine, "How are you really?" Or it might happen in private. You might delete your social media apps, cancel all your plans for a month, and just lie on the floor, too tired to even pretend anymore. This collapse is not a failure, it is a surrender. It is your psyche waving the white flag and declaring, "I cannot do this anymore. The cost is too high." The exhaustion itself becomes a form of truth. It is your body and mind's final, desperate plea for authenticity. The energy you were using to maintain the walls is now gone, and the walls simply crumble from neglect. In this state of raw, unmasked exhaustion, you have nothing left to defend. You have no energy for avoidance. And in that stripped-down, authentic state, a strange thing happens. You become real, and realness is the cornerstone of true connection. When someone asks, "Are you okay?" and you, from a place of pure exhaustion, whisper, "No, I'm not," you have, for the first time in a long time, told the truth. And that truth, that moment of unmasked reality, is the beginning of the end of your avoidance. The breaking point is when you choose rest, the deep soul-level rest of authenticity over the exhausting performance of invulnerability. Deep within you, beneath the layers of fear, the scar tissue of past hurts, and the carefully constructed persona of the avoidant, there is an untouched self. This is your essential nature, the purs. On you were before you learned to be afraid. This self is not defined by its wounds or its defenses. It is curious, passionate, loving, and wildly alive. It is the part of you that still wants to play, to create, to explore, and to love without reservation. For most of your life, you have kept this part of yourself in a soundproof room. You've turned up the volume on your fears to drown out its voice. But this self is tenacious. It is life itself, and it wants to be lived. It sends you signals in your dreams and your sudden, inexplicable urges to dance, to paint, to call an old friend, to book a trip to a place you've never been. Most of the time, you dismiss these signals as impractical, silly, or dangerous, but the pressure builds. The untouched self does not like its prison. And then comes the moment of the primal roar. This is not a quiet whisper. It is a tectonic shift in your soul. It is a surge of life force so powerful it cannot be contained. It feels like a rebellion from the inside. This is the unignorable call breaking point. It often comes not from a place of pain, but from a place of profound, restless yearning. You look at your life, the safe job, the tidy apartment, the predictable routines, and you are not sad, you are disgusted. You feel like a lion living in a house cat's body. The life you are living feels like a betrayal of your own potential. This breaking point is a spiritual crisis. It's the moment your soul demands more from you. The fear of reaching out to others is still there, but it is now overshadowed by a much greater fear. The fear of dying with your music still inside you. The fear of never having truly lived, never having truly loved, never having been truly known. The untouched self would rather be heartbroken than numb. It would rather be authentic and rejected than be fake and safe. This roar becomes your new compass. It drowns out the voice of your conditioned fear. You start taking actions not because they are safe, but because they feel alive. You quit the soul-crushing job. You tell someone you love them. You share your art with the world. You reach out because the untouched self is inherently relational. It longs to connect with other untouched selves. The breaking point is when you finally decide to bet on yourself. Not on your fearful, defensive self, but on your powerful, essential, untouched self. You realize that the person you've been protecting all these years isn't even the real you. The real you is the one who is brave enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to need others, and magnificent enough to risk being seen. And that person is finally, ferociously breaking out. So what is the avoidance breaking point? It is not one single thing, but a constellation of moments where the soul, tired of its own confinement, finds a crack in the prison wall and decides to break through. It is the moment the accumulated weight of your own silence becomes heavier than the fear of speaking your truth. It is the terrifying vision of a future built by your avoidance, a ghost life that you simply cannot allow yourself to inhabit. It is the profound disgust with the person you have become, the jailer of your own heart, and the subsequent reclamation of the person you were always meant to be. It is the glimpse of a different way of living, a world of warmth and connection that makes your fortress feel like a tomb. It is your own body, in its infinite wisdom, staging a revolt against the psychological war you have been waging on yourself. It is the external storm that shatters the illusion that you were ever in control, forcing you to discover the strength that comes from leaning on others. It is the deafening echo in the empty room of your life, a silence that screams so loudly you are forced to make a noise to reach out to connect. It is the moral reckoning that your self-protection is causing real pain to people who love you, and your decision to finally pay your debt of love. It is sheer, utter exhaustion of the performance, the collapse of the I'm fine facade, leaving you raw, real, and finally ready for authenticity. And ultimately, it is the primal, unignorable roar of your untouched self, the magnificent, powerful, and loving being you are at your core, who would rather risk everything for a chance at a real life than guarantee a slow death in a safe one. Your breaking point is not your failure. It is your awakening. It is the signal that the old strategies have served their purpose and have now become the problem. The pain you feel is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are ready to grow, that you are ready to live. The walls are coming down, not because you are weak, but because the life force within you is too strong to be contained any longer. So let them fall, let the light in, let the noise of the world replace the echo of your isolation. Your breaking point is not the end of your story. It is the powerful, courageous, glorious beginning. Thank you. Thank you for having the courage to listen to this, for allowing these words to land in the places within you that are ready to heal, to grow, to break free. This is your moment. This is your time. Now go out there and claim the connection, the love, and the life that you deserve. I believe in you. Now it's time for you to believe in you. Goodbye and God bless.